at you with the second review of a TV show. I did Stranger Things before, and now I'm gonna do Luke Cage. Both are Netflix series, and both are shows that I really, really enjoyed. I'm a huge Marvel fan, as well this may make clear. But to be honest with you, I don't have that big of a background in Luke Cage. I used to collect some of the Heroes for Hire comics in the 90s and 2000s, but up until, like, a lot of people seem to think that Luke Cage was a much more popular character than he was up until a few years ago, like maybe like mid 2000s, and that's kind of when I kind of knocked off a little bit as far as collecting, just because of, you know, responsibilities that took me money away from being able to spend it on comics. But with that being said, I by no means am I a first-time viewer of anything to do with Luke Cage. I have, like as I said, I read some comics of his back in the day, and I have kept up to a degree with what he's been doing, and everything I've always known about the character I quite liked. It's funny because he used to be called Power Man in the comics, and he used to have this really lame 70s kind of clothing, and even up until the 90s. And I used to always think it was pretty rad that he looked like that, even like in that era, an era where like a lot of characters were being like made modern and cool, and all of a sudden had gigantic guns. Like if you look back at the 90s comics, you have people with like guns that, like, you know, like if this was their arm, it would be like the gun would be 3 times this long, and like it was ridiculous. Like you should look at some like old pictures of Cable, the X-Man, and look at the size of his guns. It was ludicrous. So I always really enjoy the fact that he had that. But that's all an aside that has very little to do with the show, other than to say that, you know, I'm not coming into this as what I would describe as being like a gigantic Luke Cage fan, but as somebody who always had an appreciation for the character, and this show made me like him a lot more. I really, really enjoyed the show. I thought the actor who played him was fantastic. I'm gonna try to do my best not to have any spoilers. I will discuss a few things that happen in the show, but kind of in like vague terms, so that maybe people who have seen the show will know what I'm talking about, but not other people. There was lots of things I really, really liked. I thought his characterization was like super on point, and I wasn't sure because I'd read that there was a lot of they included a lot of the racial tensions with police, and just with like society in general, and like some of the anger that is going on in society now with like the Black Lives Matter movement. And although they don't reference it directly, but a lot of the same themes about I'll just say this. This is a very, very, very minor spoiler. We're basically, throughout a lot of the show, from the first episode on, the cops are looking for Luke, and he's an innocent dude. And at one point, somebody questions why he'd be on the run, and somebody else references that he's a black guy in a hoodie with the cops after him. Why wouldn't he be running? So, you know, like it's an undercurrent, which I'd read that was the case, and I wasn't sure how much I would like that, because obviously, you know, you look at the comic stuff a lot of the time for escapism, and a lot of the time when people, like when series throw in stuff like that of the moment, they do it in kind of like a preachy way, and I thought that this show handled it to perfection. Like there's a speech near the end of it, which I'm not gonna say who gives it, but there's a speech near the end of it that addresses everything that happened in the show, but also addresses like society's current ills, and but honestly, it almost moved me to tears. Like I thought it was just so on point and so great. And like this show had a lot of great characters. Honestly, I loved the show. The only weakness in my view was on the villain side, which you know, it's a common refrain about Marvel that there aren't that many great villains. And I will say this: I think that there was 2 villains in this show that I really, really liked, and then there was 2 that I didn't really love. And ironically enough, well, maybe not ironically, but unfortunately enough, the 2 villains I didn't particularly care for were both black males, and they were the only 2. There was 4 main villains, and that seems like a lot, but it's just the truth. And again, that's not really much of a spoiler. All 4 of the characters get referenced in the first episode. So, but there's 4 main villains, 2 of which are black males, 2 of which are not. The 2 black males, to me, I didn't really care for, and it wasn't because of like the actors. It was because of the way they were written. one of them is the first one. He's played by an actor who was on House of Cards, which is a show I really, really liked, and I really like him as an actor. I think he's phenomenal, and I thought his performance as the character was great, but I did not like the way that he was portrayed. And the reason why I didn't really like the way that either of them were portrayed was, so basically they were both kind of, both the black male villains were portrayed as being like leaders of crime families, essentially, but like modernized, right? And I really didn't like that neither of them were portrayed as having like a logical bone in their body. Basically, everything that they were doing was all erratic and all reactionary and like poorly thought out and had major negative repercussions. And in my view, most of the time when I was watching what they were doing, it's like, well, how do you expect this to work out for you? And I didn't really like that. Like I would have way preferred it. Like if they the first guy who was acting like that, if they'd shown him as being in control, and then all the stuff that Luke Cage made him get that way, I would have been cool with it. But that's not really the case. He like, I mean, there at the very beginning he is in control, and you can see that, but it's like, snap, and that's over, because the first episode, Luke Cage gets involved in it all, and he starts making these stupid moves, and yeah, I didn't care for that element. But otherwise, I thought the show was fantastic. There were so many great characters. There was so many minor characters that were great. And when I say minor, basically it's not like, you know, the main villain or the main hero, right? So just lesser than the mainline actors. Like, so like there's a character named Misty Knight. I thought she was awesome. The night nurse is back from Daredevil and Jessica Jones. She was great. There's a character named Mariah Dillard who I thought was awesome. I loved her. Like I thought she was great. And then a dude named Shades, who was, of all the male villains, was the one who kept it together and was really, really good. Like overall, I really, really liked this show a lot. So please let me know what you think, and let me know if the speech at the end got to you the same way it got to me. I just thought it was a very well done show. So have a nice day.